Love is the alpha and the omega, the beginning, the middle, and the end. You are the beginning, you are the end. It truly seems to me that everything in life revolves around love. It genuinely seems to me that love is something we deeply feel. As the great Beethoven himself said, it should be felt somewhere in this very core part of the human body. This music, and I remember that I experienced, a real catharsis. For my still very young, truly childlike perception, it was simply too much to comprehend. In the profound word love, there is somehow much more respect, genuine acceptance, a certain kind of unwavering faith and profound selflessness. Perhaps for me, there are indeed more noble and elevated aspects contained within the powerful word love. It would be blasphemy if someone said that love isn't important to me. That's what we exist for, that's why we create, that's what, in principle, every one of our days is about. And again, art itself is love. Any act of creation is an act of love. And always this significant contrast between love and farewell, between meetings, this all truly helps us to appreciate, to truly love, to feel more deeply, to remember, and to keep it in our hearts.
Suffering and love are such profoundly different poles of human emotion, between which the entire main action truly takes place.
There was a style where colored ink, where paint flowed from one process into another. It was beautiful and organic.
Greetings, I'm Nick Lesistki, and this is Archetype of the Nation, a cultural project that explores the foundations of Ukrainian national identity, who we were, who we have become, and who we must and can be. We seek the answer in folklore as well as in conversations with outstanding representatives of our nation. Today our guest is the artist Nataliia Korf-Ivaniuk. Hello, Nataliia.
Hello, Nick.
Each episode of our project is dedicated to a certain specific value characteristic of the Ukrainian nation, and today we would truly like to invite you to talk about such an important value as love. And here I'll make a small remark, especially for our viewers and listeners. Usually we don't typically explain in great detail why we specifically invite certain distinguished guests to our show to thoughtfully discuss a particular, often complex value. But when it comes to the profound subject of love, there is, let's just say, a certain delicate nuance that requires careful consideration. In my personal opinion, on the one hand, almost anyone can indeed talk about love. In fact, when it truly comes to romantic love, to deep relationships between a man and a woman, anyone is truly able to talk about love, because it's a very personal story. It's all about feelings. But to truly describe love and to speak about the phenomenon of love in general, to talk about love as a true value, in my opinion, indeed only a poet or an artist can do that. And that's precisely why. Since we already had a wonderful poet in one of the previous earlier episodes, we truly wanted to talk with you as a remarkable artist about love as a profound value.
Thank you very, very much indeed. I'm truly glad that you invited me, and especially to talk about love. Well, I think that maybe it's not a coincidence because any kind of art is already love, it's already an act of love. I truly think that it's something profoundly divine to me if you don't deeply infuse your work, your very canvas, your entire inner world, and don't convey it through paint with genuine love and passion, then the viewer simply won't understand it, they truly won't feel it in the profound way they're truly supposed to. I've always had this significant thought somewhere deep inside me, and I've heard that only something truly experienced and truly felt indeed has the right to be depicted on a canvas, because a painting is always a dialogue. That is, it's a kind of non-verbal dialogue with the viewer. When you come to a gallery, a museum, or an artist's studio, you have the opportunity to sit in front of a work if no one else is around and start this conversation. You can ask questions or find answers within yourself. And if this crucial message was not effectively conveyed by the artist, if it was delivered incorrectly or without genuine feeling, and therefore completely without love, then it is simply an empty, hollow work. That is to say, it may possess some other visual aspects, it's simply beautiful, or it's highly relevant, or it's truly interesting, but it profoundly lacks that essential quality which is truly supposed to touch your innermost being. It genuinely seems to me that love is something we deeply feel. Just as Beethoven famously said, it should be felt somewhere right here, in this very specific part of the human body. When something significant arises here and you, maybe it's not a very nice word, but you really have to feel it deeply in your guts. That's what an ideal work is for me. For example, when I go to a beautiful gallery or a fascinating museum, if I truly don't have this inner sense or a reflection from the artwork, then I just move on, I look at something else. There has to be something inside here. Just like you get butterflies in your stomach from someone you love, or from certain feelings or a sudden encounter, it's the same with painting.
In fact, today we truly want to explore together with you this fascinating phenomenon of love, of being deeply in love, specifically Ukrainian love, if it can somehow be distinguished from the universal human experience. And as always, we'll probably start with a comprehensive folkloric definition. Because for each and every one of our episodes, we carefully analyze how a particular significant value is represented in folklore and then form certain definitions or insightful ideas. They are presented in the form of essays, which you can read on our website. The links will also be in the description for this episode. Now I will quote the idea we formulated about love. Love, in traditional Ukrainian society and in folklore, it is not only a passionate desire, but also an ethical principle that requires devotion, sincerity, and trust. The worldview of living in love still profoundly shapes ideas about relationships and family within Ukrainian society, and is truly a part of that inner strength which helps people remain humane even in the most incredibly difficult times. Natalka, do you completely agree with this significant idea? What exactly does it mean to you? Love in society. How do you personally see it? How do you deeply feel it now?
My grandma once told me when I got married, she said, "That's it, Natalka, you're married now. You need to know this. Go to bed late, get up early." That was truly her very idea, precisely how one should indeed live a family life. It seems to me that nowadays, love is no longer just about fleeting passion, about some superficial feelings, about that intense, emotional frenzy that quickly fades away. Now, unfortunately, I really don't want to and don't like to draw inspiration from the war, although at the beginning of the full-scale invasion, I had an exhibition dedicated specifically to this difficult period, the start of our new era, a new life that is so horrific. But still, I have to mention it because of the full-scale invasion, we all began to feel other aspects of life much more acutely, including love. For me, for example, what happened inside me as an artist, as a woman, I started to truly value my time much more. I profoundly realized just how fleeting life truly is, how all of our emotions become heightened. Despite all the horror, the darkness, the fear, and the constant anxiety, it's absolutely essential to preserve our humanity and try to hold on to those precious fragments of happiness that the universe generously gives us every single day. If you have them, you absolutely need to cherish and carefully nurture them. That's precisely why, for example, I choose to live my life with love. And in the deeply rooted traditions of Ukrainian society, there is an inherent inner strength. All of this is undeniably true, but we must not forget that we absolutely need to practice a kind of essential inner self-preservation, so as not to completely lose ourselves again because of some fleeting blind emotions. Throughout history, artists have always devoted an extraordinary amount of significant attention to the profound theme of love and romance. If we translate this specifically to Ukrainian art, I really like and would use as a prime example Fedor Krzyzewski, one of the prominent founders of modernism and the very first rector of the Ukrainian Academy of Arts. He has a wonderful work, a triptych called Family. It consists of 3 parts, the first of which is love, or the kiss. Its style is very reminiscent of... In it, we can see a man who gently kisses his beloved on the neck, and it's all about protection, about how he safeguards her. Next part, and by the way, his wife Nataliia posed for it. The next part is something fundamental. This one is called Family, the central part of the triptych. And the third significant part is Return, where the man returns home from the front, from the devastating war, and perhaps he might even... We don't see, the artist doesn't depict the farewell itself, but rather the return, that is, once again, the reunion with the family. It seems to me that this particular artistic work very clearly and profoundly reflects and expresses the complex and challenging current situation that we are experiencing in Ukraine at this moment in time. Because due to the full-scale invasion, many families have been separated, and now the moments of farewell and reunion have taken on a completely different meaning. That's precisely why I truly think fundamental values like saying a heartfelt goodbye and then eventually returning, and once again those precious brief moments spent together must be deeply cherished and carefully protected above all else. To truly try to be close to the person who is with you right now, even during the very hardest and most challenging times.
Please tell us, what role does love play in, specifically, your work? Because for you, as far as I know, the main theme mostly is physicality. How does love manifest itself in this theme? How is it connected to it? Or maybe it's a separate recurring theme?
Yes, for me, there have always been several prominent and distinct themes. I mean, I'm quite an active and prolific artist, and for some profound reason, I simply cannot exist for an extended period in just one singular genre, or continue along my creative artistic path within a single repetitive series, constantly repeating it. That's precisely why I've always had these 2 fundamental and enduring threads that I've consistently maintained throughout my work. One is about the corporeal, sensuality, the discovery of images, certain psycho-emotional states of a person through paint, through color, through a blot. This series appeared precisely during that period. I want to talk a bit about it. A time we all experienced not so long ago and haven't forgotten. It's the quarantine period when we all were forced by circumstances to stay put. We were sort of sealed off within 4 walls, left alone with our own emotions. It was probably just some simple everyday life, just an apartment, 4 walls, a mirror, a lot of free time, or for those who were working, some glances here and there. For me, for example, I found myself immersed in my own thoughts, and I started to feel things and my own body in a completely different way, and to sense my own desires. And it was during this period that the theme of nudity emerged. Maybe it was because I spent a lot of time alone with myself and also communicated with my acquaintances who sometimes came over to pose for me. And during this time, a completely different kind of femininity opened up for me. That is, I felt myself even so much more free, despite those circumstances. I profoundly accepted myself. I truly believed in myself completely and wholeheartedly. And it was immediately after this significant personal breakthrough that I meticulously created the acclaimed series titled Nudes and also Flesh and Blood. Additionally, I consider it to be quite a remarkable achievement That is fundamental for me as an artist. I value this series very much. It was exhibited at the Mironova Gallery, and also what has always kept me going is another line of my work. This is a theme connected to our cultural heritage, to our sacred traditions. These are signs, symbols, ornaments, and the rich semantics of colors. I make beautiful carpets. They are on canvas, they are three-dimensional, and they are created based on traditional Ukrainian embroidery. Of course, just like every other artist, I too I filter everything through myself. I truly modernize all these traditional ornaments in some way and bring my own unique vision to them. Because now we can already confidently say that we are contemporary artists, while our rich traditions remain a constant source of profound inspiration. It seems to me that only a blind person can't see how interesting and profound our nation is. So all this heritage of ours, we need to keep rethinking it and creating new cool things. That is why the carpets that I make and the theme of corporality, though they might seem so different, both feel quite natural to me. Here I open up as a woman, as an artist from a more sensual side. I very rarely paint faces. It seems to me that faces give each image something too specific, and I truly want the emotion to be clearly conveyed through the visual elements, so that the paint itself speaks to the viewer. That is, I want my lines and spots to be more expressive. Right now, I'm also currently preparing a brand new series, and it's an absolute emptiness in terms of specific detail. Therefore, this series will be aptly called Disappearing in Color. There are a few possible titles. I'll think about it a bit more, but it will be a completely different me. You know, I truly never go to the studio without some kind of deep inner emotion. I have one very important main rule. No matter what actually happens, I always make sure to go to the studio and diligently work. So when I feel bad, I'm in the studio, and when I feel really good, I'm also in the studio. I truly try to dedicate every single day to this creative process. It's not always even about painting actual pictures. Sometimes it's profoundly important just to be alone with the artistic materials, with the blank canvas. When you look at the canvas, mix paints, or even just wash your brushes, it's already a kind of... For me, it's a sacred creative process, and of course it's filled with love because I truly love what I do. And it truly seems to me that the greatest tragedy for me personally would be if something prevented me from continuing my work. When the war began, I started painting the very next day. At that very moment, I only had watercolor paper and colored ink, so basically just a few materials. I practically had nothing. It was a basement room, and that's where I started my new series. Many people couldn't work. I talked to an artist. Some people just had this kind of abyss when it was hard even to pick up any materials. But for me, it was the opposite. I mean, I even realized that not even something as terrible as war could make me stop. So everything that truly happens to me, I tend to divide it into... The truly terrible things are those that absolutely prevent me from working, and then there are other things I can endure, get through, and somehow, with great effort, pull myself together as an artist.
I truly think that many of our viewers and listeners will be interested to hear from you and learn more about how you create, how the entire creative process happens, and what inspires the compelling themes of your remarkable work. I think it will be very interesting indeed. Please do tell us all about it.
Yes, about the act of creation itself. I really like that word. I really love reading Miroslav Dochinets, and he has this idea that creativity is creation. That is, it comes from the creator. So how does my process work? I like large formats. I love large formats. I truly love big canvases. I love very big spaces. Yeah, I paint quite freely, you know, I do indeed. But to be honest with you, I don't really like showing the entire process itself because it's quite an intimate and personal thing. Before, it was much easier for me to work when someone was nearby, but now I try more and more to be completely alone and to go much deeper into my thoughts. Honestly, I don't always even want to talk about my art. As they say, I read very little, but I think much more. This entire process, when you become so deeply immersed in everything that surrounds you, it's not merely about work, nor is it simply a hobby, of course, it is fundamentally about life itself. It becomes so intimately and inextricably intertwined with my creative studio, my entire daily routine, and indeed my every single day, that I simply live and breathe this existence. I absolutely do not separate it thinking, now I'm going to work, and then subsequently coming back home. Instead, it's all one continuous flowing and integrated process of living and creating. I work very quickly and also very emotionally. I can paint a really large canvas within just about an hour, or I can certainly split it up. For me, it's hard to even put it into words because it's pure emotion. On the contrary, when I work on a piece for quite a long time, artists will understand me. It becomes what we call soaked through. And when you look at such a work, you don't feel that energy or that thrill. When you see how many times you've redone it, something didn't work out, and you started over again, it's just not what it should be anymore. But when it's done spontaneously, maybe in a kind of frenzy, in a burst of creative energy, that's exactly when I would confidently say there's profound love in it, real, genuine love. There's also a strong sense of eroticism, captivating aesthetics, and indeed sex in it, because every true art form is inherently erotic, as the renowned artist Gustav Klimt famously said. That's precisely why it's always a big, broad brushstroke, a truly large canvas, typically about 2 by 1.5 meters in size. If we talk about the process itself, I paint on the floor because I have a technical approach where the paint shouldn't run, so it's not an easel. I used to be a more classical artist, much more traditional in the eyes of many viewers perhaps, and I would diligently sit at an easel and carefully apply paint. Now there's often a considerable amount of paint involved, and honestly I don't really worry about the quantity or the mess. I have a large collection of brushes, which I later frequently throw away, though sometimes I do wash them thoroughly, and other times I simply forget about them entirely. All of this is for my own comfort and so that I can really enjoy working. For me, the work itself is always the most important thing. This process might not seem very aesthetic to some people, but what is aesthetics truly after all? It's like the birth of a new child. It's frightening, there's a lot of blood, a lot of pain, but it's the birth of something beautiful, the birth of an entire universe. In the same way, that's how I feel about my works, which I love very much, but the process itself is mine. It's deeply personal, a space where I feel comfortable coexisting. I'm not saying that if you come into my studio, you won't trip and fall over a can of paint, because that happens too. The main thing is the result. I love to work when there's a model, when you can truly talk to a person. Having a dedicated model is always very interesting indeed, to carefully observe how a person genuinely changes when they come into your professional studio. And she doesn't know what will happen to her when she undresses. It really exposes emotions, not just the body. It reveals first and foremost your emotion. And you can clearly observe precisely how a woman truly frees herself completely and utterly from what was troubling her before she came to the studio. How she is reborn, how she truly accepts herself completely. When she looks at my artistic works, of course, I really feel I do it the way I feel them. And when you truly see a deeply satisfied look or some kind of truly amazing wow effect, it genuinely gives you even more inspiration. But with carpets, it's completely and entirely different. It's a much, much longer and more involved process. and the creative moment there is more intrinsically connected to the very beginning of the work itself. For a very long time, I meticulously study various sketches, signs, and symbols from which I later carefully compose the intricate ornament. And when I get to the technical part of the job, it's, more of a physically demanding job and quite a difficult one. But the underlying processes themselves are very interesting indeed. What I love most is when I'm working, whether it's a large carpet or a detailed painting, I'm using a lot of paint, I go home, and I never truly know what the result will be. So it's always a pure experiment. The next day I might come to the studio, and everything there will be completely different. I'm not saying that I come in and realize it's nothing like what I originally expected, but sometimes when you're slowly inching along like a blind kitten and have absolutely no idea what will truly happen next, there's a certain undeniable charm, a real thrill in that. When you eventually leave and your creative work and the paint keep working on their own, it's very interesting indeed. That's precisely why many of my works, especially the ones I've been creating more recently, I can never truly repeat them. In fact, I don't have such a strict rule at all. But even if I wanted to, I could never do it. Because it's always a living experiment and everything happens in the process. And it changes in the process.
In one of your interviews, you said that you create your works while listening to Vivaldi's music. Do you think anything would change if you created them while listening to Ukrainian folk songs?
It would certainly change. For a very long time, I worked while listening to the music of Daka Braka, to Bozici, and those were completely different works. They were entirely different works. But the thing is, when I come to the studio, I always choose a playlist for myself. That is, I know what I'm going to create, and for each series, it's a completely different kind of music. It's very important to me. The atmosphere in the studio, for example, I might have a complete mess, but the music has to be in harmony with what I feel, with what's on my canvas.
In which works was there more love? In those created to Vivaldi or those to Daka Braka?
There was more suffering with Vivaldi and more love with Daka Braka, at least for me. Sometimes I even put on some schnitke, especially when I really need to do something like pouring or splattering things around, some wild things like that. But for me, it's quite normal, perfectly adequate and easily understandable. So to some pop music perhaps? No, I really can't. Definitely classical music, that's what I need. And I even start to get quite irritated. If the music truly doesn't suit my work, I'll wash my hands, put down the paint, and then look for something that perfectly fits my mood right now. In fact, it's actually very important indeed.
The archetype of the nation is created with the support of the Ukrainian Cultural Foundation and is released in various formats. So choose the one you like, listen, watch, read our episodes, and also share your thoughts in the comments, because in this project, every opinion matters. And of course, subscribe to our channels and pages so you don't miss anything interesting. All the links are in the description for this episode. You study a lot of traditional Ukrainian symbolism. Are there any traditional Ukrainian symbols that are deeply and profoundly connected to love? And if so, which particular and specific symbols are they, from your expert perspective?
Well, of course, these are indeed the very first geometric shapes. That's a rhombus, a sown field, and when there's a small dot inside the rhombus, it specifically means fertilization, representing the birth of a child. I've had requests like that when a family would order a carpet for themselves and they wanted to have this symbol, that one and another one, meaning there were certain styles. Requests for the birth of a cherished child, for a truly happy and fulfilling family life. And you feel to some extent, perhaps a little bit like a good, wise molfarka, someone who performs some kind of profound magical work indeed. So it's not just a process anymore, it's something almost sacred. You feel a significant and profound responsibility for the ultimate future fate of your creative work, and you also ponder deeply about precisely how it will gracefully coexist in a completely new home within a loving and supportive new family.
Have you ever researched the history of these symbols? Where do they come from? Maybe from the Trypillian culture or from later times?
The ancient Trypillian culture, oh yes, it's practically found all over the world. And I'm very interested, for example, I often carefully look at the intricate ornaments of different countries and regions. And what's most fascinating is how much they resonate with our Ukrainian ones. I see a lot in common with Mexico and especially India. Right now I'm working on a new series of ornaments, carpets, and this is already closer to Ukrainian Baroque. And when I started making them in color, I realized that this is something universal, something that could be inherent to many countries. So it's not just Ukrainian anymore, it's gone somewhere further. And that's good because the first original series was indeed called Sign. These were ornaments that I took in particular. This is white on white embroidery, meaning it's a Poltava ornament. The ones that are really more geometric are actually from Western Ukraine. So these were specific symbols from specific regions, specifically Ukrainian ornamentation that is characteristic to us. But now, however, I want to explore a truly more universal aspect indeed. And in general, our nation is very colorful. It's incredibly interesting and diverse. I used to have a particular series, for example, called Gates, which I really, really liked. Gates that still beautifully remain in the charming villages, exquisitely painted with graceful swans and vibrant flowers. I'm originally from Kremenchuk, and when I travel this familiar road home, it truly warms my heart and fills me with a deep sense of contentment that they are still present to this very day. I was very afraid that in a year or two I wouldn't see them anymore. These gates, they have remained on my canvases, and thank God for the people who touch them up, but still don't replace them with some more trendy modern ones. That's why it's also so loving and so much a part of who we are. Дуже любовно і по-нашому. Maria Primachenko again with her bright, exuberant colors. And how much love there is, despite the fact that she lost her husband and raised her son on her own. I truly admire her painting, how incredibly vivid and vibrant it is, how truly original, quite unlike anyone else. But in her, there is a little bit of all of us, a shared human experience. Perhaps life was so incredibly difficult for her that she genuinely wanted to paint it as brightly and beautifully as possible. I often find myself trying to understand when I feel heavy at heart what color is characteristic of me. Many people think that if the works are black and white with minimal color, then there must be something difficult going on inside. But from my own experience, I realize it's actually the opposite. When you go through a difficult period, on the contrary, you want more paint, more color. Dark, black works where some heavy, rich color truly prevails, that's actually much more common when everything is going quite well for me, paradoxical as it may sound.
Love, in general, can probably be called one of the most popular and truly oldest themes in art. Why do you think love is like that? The main and most significant theme of many artistic and, in general, creative endeavors, not only artistic works, but creativity in general?
Well, I truly think it's actually a very simple matter because first and foremost, it's what genuinely concerns all of us, what we all deeply strive for. It's sensitivity, it's the soul. And if it's painting, if it's visual artists, or perhaps even other creative endeavors, whether it's literature or music, these are creative people who feel it most acutely. And that's what evokes, well, I wouldn't say I belong to those artists who wait for some form of inspiration, but probably the desire to create is, you could say, a true inspiration in itself. That's why it has always been important to everyone. But in the past, artists tended to focus more. If it was about love, then it was the periods of antiquity. And back then, the themes were more often religious or mythological. They imbued their artistic works with various significant symbols. That was incredibly important at the time. All those cherubic cupids, you see, flowers. Every flower had its own symbolism, and that has remained to this day. So this symbolism, like the triandato for love and other flowers, they represented completely different symbols. There are some very interesting moments, for example, when they depicted animals. A loyal dog always symbolized unwavering loyalty. But later, already in the early 20th century, artists began to change these elements to play with them in more interesting ways. For example, Manet, in his work Olympia, instead of a dog, he depicted a cat. But it wasn't just a naked woman. She was, in fact, a prostitute. That's precisely why I believe he chose such a profoundly symbolic detail. A dog is more about unwavering loyalty, while a cat, it has a distinctly different nuance, something else entirely, but it's quite interesting. Later, many artists no longer strictly followed such established conventions. However, it wasn't just about religion or mythology anymore. Over time, the profound theme of love was drawn more often from personal emotions. So the works took on a different character. They conveyed more complex and intricate ideas and concepts, sometimes suffering and intense emotions, because it was already being reinterpreted through the prism of personal feelings. And if we go back a bit now to the topic of antiquity, then these were Zeus's, this was Venus, this was Diana, in other words, symbols of something eternal, canonical. And then they were subsequently replaced by contemporary artists and a completely different artistic perspective. Especially modern artists, for example, Torres, his significant work is called Ideal Lovers. There on the wall are two clocks that run in perfect unison. And this is truly a beautiful and profound symbol of two people deeply in love, who experience life in precisely the same wonderful way, who synchronize their thoughts and actions, who love each other equally and unconditionally, who live together harmoniously, and who make all their future plans together. But it's not so much a work of art as it is a performance, because later one of these clocks started to fall out of sync. That is, if you don't wind them up, they were set at precisely the same time, but then the hands, one of them gradually started lagging behind the other. And it was a truly symbolic moment, clearly showing that relationships genuinely require continuous work. If you don't tighten the absolutely right screw somewhere along the way, the entire system will inevitably start to fail. So, symbolically speaking, but with this particular work, I think he didn't so much want to show not only that you need to work on relationships, although that's true as well, but to show that in anything, the most truly valuable thing is time. Because when we are with someone, I am quite sure we should always express our sincere gratitude and say thank you, even if we are parting ways. Those important words should always be words of deep gratitude. Thank you so very much for giving me the most precious thing. You truly gave me your valuable time. For me, again, I constantly keep jumping from topic to topic because I have so many thoughts and ideas in my head, but especially in this critical period we're living through now during the ongoing war, time is indeed the most valuable thing.
And love, you just gave a really wonderful little overview, actually, of precisely how love has been profoundly reflected in art from antiquity all the way to the present day. Can we truly say that love is, in general, the ultimate driving force behind all art?
Of course we can, absolutely. And it will always be that way. I'm sure that no matter what happens, no matter what, no matter how rapidly our civilization continues to develop, maybe soon, and I know this sounds pessimistic, everything will come to an end. But the only truly significant things that will forever remain are love and art. I really truly like it. I often find myself rewatching the brilliant Ivan Mikolajchuk, especially his profound film Dedication. And there was a particularly memorable phrase there. Love, Alpha and Omega, beginning, middle, and end. In you is the beginning, in you end. It seems to me that everything revolves around love. Sometimes I catch myself thinking that it seems to me that any action, even the most terrible one, can be explained precisely by this feeling, this emotion. This is what we should truly live for, indeed exist for, our very breed for, because in the end we will have to leave everything behind. And you will have to say goodbye to everything. You can't take anything with you. And you don't know where you'll be taking it all, or if you'll even have anything next. No one has ever truly come back and told us what it's actually like there. But I deeply feel that in my very final breaths, I would really truly want to be able to honestly tell myself that I loved and was genuinely loved. That I didn't lose or completely miss out on that profound feeling because of the modern world, because of some troubles and hardships. I think that for every person, it would be blasphemy if someone said that love isn't important to them. That's indeed what we exist for, that's truly what we create for, that's what our very everyday of ours is for, and again, in essence, art is a profound love. Any creativity is love. Music, any work is impossible without a sense of love, even if it's just something very simple. Working at a factory is a form of love, standing diligently by a machine somewhere, or perhaps sweeping the streets. Well, most people will undoubtedly say, what kind of love is truly there? I absolutely hate my job, you could certainly say that. But if you look at it from a slightly different perspective or angle, why does a person genuinely do this particular work? For the sake of making their family, the life of their family, whom they love, more comfortable. That's where I see love. So I always approach things from this unusual angle. And after all, I can justify any situation because it seems to me that at the root of it all is love.
By the way, about your wording, that sometimes you use the word kokhannia, romantic love, and other times the word liubov, love. And actually, when we were coming up with the topic, we also wondered whether to use kokhannia or liubov, because kokhannia seems to be something more sensual and relational. Liubov is perhaps something broader, more global. What meanings do you assign to these two words? Are they identical or not?
If you think about it, that's actually how it is. Well, love between a man and a woman is more about sensuality. It's more like some inner moments that are more about intense passion, while true love can be, well, of course, we all genuinely say this, love for your cherished homeland, love for a dear friend, for important things like that. But sometimes I don't pay attention to it, meaning I allow myself to do so. It's more comfortable for me to mix them, so I don't make it specific. If it's love for a man, then it's only romantic love. But it can also be just pure love, because for me, the profound word love truly carries more respect, acceptance, some kind of unwavering faith, genuine selflessness, and probably many more noble qualities. At least for me, that's precisely what the word love profoundly means. Romantic love is about emotion, about something sensual, maybe even somewhat fleeting, unfortunately. It's very much like painting, something quick, emotional, and truly expressive, but also something that genuinely gives you a real thrill, a profound sense of satisfaction, pleasure, enjoyment. But love, on the other hand, has a kind of lasting nature. But unconditional love, for example, I love the phrase unconditional love. Who can it be for, in your opinion, unconditional love?
For a child,
Can I ask a question also too?
the traditional answer for a child, for
A child, yes, I think so too, because a little unconditional love, it's only truly possible for someone whom you deeply feel is an integral part of yourself. A beloved child is like a precious little part of you, while a husband, for instance, might still be considered someone else entirely.
I'm just genuinely curious, in general terms, if we discuss the concept, in English the word love actually means both romantic love and also deep affection, truly. In Ukrainian it's kind of it's like an attempt to somehow carefully separate and assign slightly different, distinct meanings because we have kokhannia and liubov, and, well, if there are indeed two different words, they probably have at least slightly different meanings. I'm actually quite curious why that's precisely the case, why at some point they appeared and became separated and seemed to denote something subtly different, even though they're essentially the very same.
It seems to me, as far as I can tell, that there has always been a profound and unwavering emphasis on diligently protecting, deeply loving, and steadfastly believing in your cherished country, your sovereign state, and your unified nation. That is to say, there was always some kind of primary, fundamental foundation, like friendship, while intimacy and sensuality were always pushed a bit to the background. In our nation, it seems to me, and for many others as well, it was more often the case that self-sacrifice was very valued. Defending your borders, those kinds of things were considered more important. And for some reason, less attention was paid to the deep internal relationships between the various aspects of a husband and a wife. That was already sort of a little bit in the background, although I truly think it should have been in perfect sync. In other words, how you genuinely feel deep within your family environment, what your precise situation is there, that's exactly how you should probably act correctly and appropriately on the outside as well. Because if something is truly off somewhere, then if it's not right here or there, it won't be good anywhere. I think you need to control all these processes and give them equal attention.
Let me remind you that today in the studio of the Archetype of the Nation project we are talking about love with Nataliia Korf-Ivaniuk. Today we've already mentioned mythical heroes, characters who, in particular, existed in antiquity. And here's another interesting point. At some point I discovered it for myself, so to speak. You probably know that I do a lot of research on mythology, and on our channel there are almost 100 episodes dedicated to various heroes of Ukrainian mythology, heroes, phenomena, characters. And over the past few years, these captivating stories have been released on our channel. And when it truly comes to the concepts of love or romance within Ukrainian mythology, I once made a rather significant discovery for myself. Unlike, say, the well-known Greek mythology, where there is the powerful Aphrodite, there is the passionate Eros, and there are also the charming Erotes, each individually responsible for their own type of love or romance. In Ukrainian mythology, there is no specific goddess of love who would be solely responsible for matters of affection and romantic love. We possess authentic and genuine characters, truly real heroes whom we know definitively from certain reliable sources, not those fabricated or invented later in what is often termed so-called armchair mythology. They might have some theme dedicated to them, to love or romance, but among those authentic heroes we know from the sources, there was no goddess of love in ancient times. Perhaps she simply didn't reach us, perhaps this information wasn't preserved, or maybe she really never existed. And to this day it still bothers me why that is, and I don't know the answer to this question. Maybe you'll come up with some idea as to why we don't have our own Aphrodite, even though love has obviously always existed, exists now, and will always exist among us.
But as you articulate this thought now, certain distinct symbols of what truly does exist immediately come to my mind quite clearly. For me, for example, such unconditional love, although we said it can only be for a child, but still, despite that, the first thing I thought of was Lesia Ukrainka's The Forest Song, for instance. For me, she is truly like our beautiful Ukrainian goddess of love, a captivating figure.
Mavka from the forest?
Yes. I understand that there's a lot of sacrifice, a lot of trauma, and it's more of a drama, a tragedy, but for me, she is a kind of symbol, a symbol of love, even though it's through self-sacrifice. Then I also immediately remembered the shadows of forgotten ancestors, Marichka, kind of like our own Romeo and Juliet, why not? But that's
already more recent authorial works.
So, I try not to dwell too much on why there isn't a specific goddess of love, but the very first thing that truly comes to my mind are some really powerful and evocative symbols, probably stemming from my early childhood when I diligently studied literature at school, or perhaps when I eagerly read numerous books at home or some other similar experiences. My mom would read to me, and it left such a mark on my memory, and I lived by that, and in a way, I developed some of my proper human qualities from it. As a woman, for example. So I do indeed have these symbols, and that's probably why I never even asked myself that question, but it's quite interesting. For me, for example, when I think about those unforgettable ancestors, that's one of the moments when I realized I wanted to become an artist. I distinctly remember watching that particular film when I was around 12 or 13 years old. It was, in fact, the anniversary of the renowned Ivan Mikolaichuk, and they showed it very late at night. Parajanov and that music. I remember experiencing a real catharsis. For my still very young childlike perception, it was just too much to bear, to truly understand. And then at that moment, I started to process, not understanding what was happening to me. I started working, writing, paintings, graphics, and every single day, and then I truly realized that this was indeed my destined path, and I simply couldn't go anywhere else. So there was something, quite divine about it. For me, it was like some kind of significant sign. Then I was so incredibly lucky I got to see The Forest Song. It was performed by Raisen Dashkivska. She was completely alone on the stage and skillfully played all the various roles in The Forest Song. She herself truly transformed into different characters, expertly changed her voice. It was absolutely incredible. And I also had the very same profound feeling that I really needed to keep pursuing this. Some inner sense of beauty I have to follow this path as an artist. I absolutely must not stray from it. I think that was also a kind of manifestation of love which, through art, entered my soul and gave birth to something new there, some processes that were still unfamiliar to me at the time, and which I have continued to pursue even now after so many years. Not once has there been a day when I thought I should be doing something else. So this is forever now, until my last breath, I think. I'm sure of it.
You just mentioned the works, The Forest Song, and Shadows of Forgotten Ancestors. And actually, in these significant works, as well as in many traditional folk tales, love is usually somehow inseparably and profoundly connected, either with challenging trials or with intense drama, or perhaps with some kind of complicated and intricate emotions, let's put it that way. In your opinion, why is it that, well, let's just say suffering,
Yes,
is so inseparably and profoundly linked to love in Ukrainian folklore?
I think it's not just in Ukrainian folklore. In general, the profound feelings of love, romance, and suffering, these are all things that are always very close by. It's something that truly makes every single person to care and really feel that work, that particular theme, as sharply as possible, then to truly let it pass through themselves. Everyone can find something of their own in it. For example, speaking for myself, if a movie ends well, I feel a little bit like, well, I just genuinely do not believe it. On the one hand, that's quite bad, because perhaps we all really need to heal our nerves a little bit, you know? That we all expect things to end badly. Of course, in real life, you want there to be a happy ending. But somehow it's just not that truly interesting when everything ultimately ends well, or perhaps I just don't genuinely believe it. Or maybe I didn't quite get the profound emotion that was truly supposed to tingle my very nerves and effectively pull out the exact feeling I was so eagerly expecting.
So suffering and love are like two completely opposite poles of human emotion, between which the main action truly takes place. Then
That's exactly right, and it's the same in art, basically. When you look at a painting and you know the story behind its creation, you realize that the artist had something personal of their own, a profound trauma, and you truly feel it in a completely different and deeply personal way. It's precisely the same with the iconic artist Frida Kahlo. We all know about her incredibly difficult life journey and her complex relationship with Diego Rivera, which is precisely why her powerful paintings feel so incredibly intense. We all know about the renowned Katerina Bilokur, about her profound loneliness, about her truly difficult life path. And it would seem that these are just flowers, but they are deeply filled with such immense suffering that it just screams out at you, it speaks directly to you. Every single flower possesses a soul, it truly has eyes. And that's why it seems to me that if a person has a smooth path, then somehow you don't truly feel it. You don't really get genuine satisfaction from that particular emotion, even though everything is perfectly fine. But still, it doesn't excite your nerves in any significant way. You absolutely need it to be just like this, a little bit on the very edge, on the absolute verge of breaking. Well, that's precisely how artists, creative individuals, always work. Sometimes, knowing the fascinating stories of some of my artist friends, their intricate inner processes, I can always tell how they're truly doing just by looking at their beautiful paintings or their captivating exhibitions. It's very clear. It comes through in the color, in the form. When someone's relationship ends, I can almost always tell from their very first work that they probably broke up, because I see that the artist has started following a completely different path. We're not talking about appearance, like when people say a woman gets a bob haircut when she changes her life or something like that. I look at it purely as an artist, and I can sense it by the color, by the lines, by the shapes, by the style. Even if nothing seems to change, you can still feel it. And in that, on the one hand, there's something quite sad. But on the other hand, as an artist, I always think to myself, well, damn, now this individual person has even more significant chances to become truly brilliant, because suffering often gives rise to profound emotions. That's just how it is somehow, you know.
So in this case, love also truly acts as this powerful driving force of art, even unhappy love, or perhaps especially unhappy love. It deeply fuels the artist's emotions indeed.
Unfortunately, absolutely. And it's truly good that for me, the art of painting is a kind of art therapy. It genuinely heals. I come to the studio, and if something is wrong, I heal myself through the process of painting. Of course, I won't tell those who view my works or collectors that I was feeling down when I made this, and now you have to buy it and hang it in your home. No, that's not the case. But simply the process itself is a process of healing. Healing with paint, healing simply by holding a brush during a truly difficult time and continuing to diligently work on the canvas. That's right. That's why, yes, it's important, extremely important for there to be both love and suffering. Because these are real emotions, because we are living people, and unfortunately or fortunately, We don't live by a single script where everything is fine, everything unfolds logically, and it all ends with a happy ending. Maybe that's why you really value it, whether it's something quick or not so quick. Maybe that's exactly why you truly value it so much. And also happiness too, and this day and this moment when you know it's all fleeting. It's a cliche, but you won't appreciate the sweetness of sugar unless you've tasted the saltiness of salt. That is, night replaces day, and it's always this contrast between love and farewell, meetings. It's all what helps you appreciate, love, and feel things more deeply, and to remember and to keep it in your heart.
From the perspective of visitors of your exhibitions, viewers or art buyers, what is, in your opinion, more in demand, or what attracts more attention? Is it tragic images or positive ones?
Of course, it truly depends on the individual collectors, but honestly, most people generally prefer positivity and good vibes. That is, they want to be at home with their own personal touches. Everyone wants to look at something beautiful. That's why I truly appreciate those collectors who choose not just to merely decorate, but to genuinely feel, to deeply experience something, to take with them an honest answer from the artist, to take a piece of their soul with them. That is where it is genuine and not just like a decoration, like a nice backdrop to choose for oneself. But of course, everyone truly wants it to be something truly universal, something wonderful you can look at every single day. To wake up, look at the beautiful painting, and have it set a truly positive tone for your brand new day. I understand, that's true. And for example, at home, I always change the display on my walls. It is like that. Firstly, one piece hangs for a month, then I change it and hang another one, depending on my mood at the time. And it's not always some positive works like flowers or those universal landscapes, because I've painted in different styles and genres, and I have flowers, I have landscapes, and a lot of Ukrainian landscapes that I painted from life. But I just go by how I truly feel today. Whatever I really want, that's what I do and how I feel. That moment when you very much need to change something already.
The female body holds a truly significant place in your art. Why do you think the female form is such a profound embodiment, an image of love, tenderness, and affection?
I also have men as well. There is nudity. There are men, but of course fewer than women. Right now I'm actually... The last piece I painted in the studio for a new exhibition is actually a woman and a man together. For the first time, by the way, I decided to paint exactly as I wanted, on a large canvas in a big format. I'm still thinking about the title, but the painting already exists and it brings me a lot of joy. I'm very pleased with it. Oh, by the way, there's also a truly interesting and significant point about love and about eroticism that absolutely should be mentioned. I had an erotic series where it was specifically the sexual act itself that I depicted, but in a very beautiful and artistic way, without any vulgar or crude details whatsoever. I like it to be aesthetic, so I never portrayed anything in a brazen or crude manner. And for me, art is, first and foremost, truly about aesthetics, and such beautiful moments should indeed coexist. They should be deliberately expressive, but properly veiled, so that it's tasteful and aesthetically pleasing. Among artists, we have this understanding: it has to be tasteful, it has to be aesthetic. Although I know many talented artists who do this quite openly and even rather vulgarly, and that also certainly has a right to exist. Because everyone expresses themselves in the way that's comfortable for them, and for me it was like this. And an interesting point is that this also happened at the beginning of the war. I started this particular series, I don't exactly know why, but I began working on these pieces approximately a week before, and then continued for about a week after the war officially started. And these resulting works, for me personally, it wasn't just a feeling, they really were. They were the most popular ones. This series just sold out on the very same day. When I posted my work on Instagram or Facebook, I thought, oh God, everyone is going to tear me apart, spit on me, say, look at what's happening here, there's a war, people are thinking about how to save themselves, and she's painting erotica, men and women kissing in passionate embraces, almost everything exposed. It was a style where colored ink, where the paint would flow and bleed, process within process, meaning it was all very beautiful, organic. And as I already said, these beautiful, passionate works immediately found new lives in new homes. And I realized just how much we indeed lack love, true affection, and how important it is. So for the people who bought these works, it was like a lifeline they clung to in order not to drown in that profound despair and deep uncertainty about what tomorrow would truly bring. War is indeed war, but finding inner peace within yourself during this challenging time is what truly, truly matters. And the female image, well, probably because, first of all, I am a woman, and I can truly sense those inner moments within myself. I understand how to convey them properly, and it's much easier for me to work with corporeality through the female body. Here you have everything: love, passion, trauma, hopes, dreams, all in one body, and everything speaks for itself. Every detail speaks, every movement, every line, every spot, all of it has to carry some emotion. That's why it has always been easier for me to always work with nudity, specifically through the female body. Maybe it's because I am a mother, meaning that I truly feel my body also from the profound perspective of unconditional sacrifice, the complete acceptance that I have indeed given life, and that already inherently gives me the undeniable right to depict women in their various and diverse manifestations. Not so much the right, but rather an understanding of how to show it properly, how to truly and deeply feel it. In my artistic works, I often depict pregnant women, for me, they were the embodiment of, like a kind of mother, the earth, a true continuation of the family line, a devoted guardian indeed, of course, but already quite more modern somewhere.
As far as I thoroughly understand from our current conversation now, the general attitude toward corporeality, at least within the realm of art, both from the perspective of artists and from the audience's viewpoint, has already become significantly more modern, more liberated, much like it has consistently been in the Western world for a very long time. In Ukrainian folklore, if you carefully look at traditional folk works, particularly those depicting love, looks more like love. It's very chaste and often about some feelings or human suffering, and to a lesser extent about corporeality itself. And at the same time we also know about, for example, Kupala traditions, Kupala rituals, where on the holiday of Kupala girls and boys would gather, and what happened there, let's say, was condemned by the church. That is to say, in life, in real, actual life, this truly did happen. In folklore, either it has simply not been preserved or it was not widely reproduced, so we can observe much less of this overt physicality and explicit eroticism. Why do you personally think that happened?
It seems to me, firstly, that every single nation truly wants to leave behind more cultured memories of its rich and enduring traditions. I think it's quite normal, and indeed it's truly good that we are fully aware of these important facts. It's kind of a little bit, not that we should condemn it or perceive it as something inherently wrong, but we understand that it existed and it certainly has the right to exist. The simple fact that it wasn't recorded, I think that in some way certain moments should still remain veiled. We teach children certain things along with cultural traditions.
You're ashamed of
That is,
something.
perhaps it is the case that we are unable to present it in the most appropriate and effective manner or adequately explain this particular situation, after all. I don't really want to call it an animalistic instinct, but rather some kind of inherent desire for something. Something primal, something that comes from deep within you, from your very, very free, brave desires, something that we truly, truly can't say out loud. Why is that exactly? So we won't be judged, so no one ever says, oh my goodness, what exactly were they doing, what were they really truly up to? And that's quite wrong, that's not at all nice, but still, it's probably deeply connected to our upbringing, to some kind of proper societal expectation, a certain way of behaving. Place, that's normal. I believe that it existed, it had the right to exist, but the fact that it hasn't been preserved and isn't described as... Nowadays, there is already far too much readily available information that can potentially harm an unformed child's developing imagination or their proper and complete understanding of how various things truly happened. That's why it needs to be presented either properly or in a measured way. And this doesn't mean that we want to deliberately mislead or lie to anyone in any way, or hide our true soul, our innermost being, our fundamental nature, our essence. It's not about that at all. It's about the fact that this did exist. It was a pagan belief, right? But that is to say, it was, let's just say, connected with some particular things, other deeply held beliefs, various forms of worships, and so these are sacred rituals that are performed, that took place irregularly, occurring just once a year. And that's probably precisely why people had the absolute right to go a little crazy, to truly lose their minds, to completely break free, to openly show their true selves, and then the very next day to live as righteous, upstanding people as they truly should, so that everything would remain quiet, peaceful, and absolutely no one would remember it. I think that every nation has its own skeletons in the closet, and that's normal. Let them stay there. We know about them, but we'll take them out and show them to our children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, saying, look what we could do, look how brave we were. But in books, let it be something like that. Although I think it needs to be done properly, like I said, it needs to be presented in the right way, explained somehow. It's quite interesting because even today I'll just come home and tell my son, he's exactly 14 years old, but it truly used to be like this. I want to study this fact in more detail and tell him about it. I'm interested to hear his opinion, what he'll say about it. By the way, I often take him to the art workshop, and when I have some specific questions, I am genuinely interested in his unique perspective. Because young children perceive art in a completely different and often more profound way. They're more sincere, more truly free, and if something is clearly off, if something's not quite right or doesn't feel authentic, he'll honestly and openly tell me all about it. That's why when I create something, I always ask him, what do you think? I tell him, do you understand what this is? And his opinion is always really very interesting.
By the way, how does your son perceive the nude figures in your works?
Very normally. I can ask the question, very directly. Nazar, do you understand that? Because I have all kinds of works. There are works where I mix several styles, and honestly, sometimes you just can't tell if it's avant-garde, just some spots or a body. But I still want the aesthetics of the body to remain. I ask him, I say, do you understand that it's him? Yes, well, look, he says, here are the breasts, and this is the womb. And these are truly alive, he understands that completely. He's always in the studio, very often he genuinely knows all these intricate processes, so he already possesses a strong sense for it. I frequently take him to various exhibitions, we often go to museums together, and I always talk to him extensively about what he truly feels and which particular work he likes more. Well, in general, you need to talk to children, and you need to talk not only about art, but in principle discuss different topics. And regarding art, it's important to me that he has his own opinion, independent of mine, just that he has his own view and knows how to express it properly. And I'm sometimes just truly amazed when he talks about some incredible artwork he saw somewhere, or something truly fascinating they were shown at school, and I can genuinely feel that he already possesses his inner sense, his innate understanding, can make the right and proper distinction between good and bad work, explain it clearly, and interpret it thoughtfully. I think that some of my deeper conversations with him are already bearing the right kind of valuable fruit. For us, you see, nudity is not a taboo topic at all. I don't hide when I'm painting something like that. I can even tell him that today a model is coming to pose for me. Of course, I don't take him with me then, but he knows that mom will be painting a nude model, or that she's going to someone's place to paint from life. These are normal processes. He's just a child, an imaginative artist, so it's completely normal for him to act this way.
You have mentioned the different female images that frequently appear in your artistic work, and in fact there are also various, let's say, distinct archetypes of women present in traditional folklore. In your considered opinion, how significantly does the image of the modern Ukrainian woman truly differ from those captivating images found within the rich tapestry of folklore?
She is a warrior. I think that now the archetype is first and foremost that of a warrior, because Ukrainian women in general have always been strong. They were wise and they carried a lot on their shoulders. As they say, the father holds up the world, but the mother holds up the home. But I don't think that's quite true. Now all of these values have changed a little bit. They've somehow flowed and merged into one another. And now you can confidently say that a woman also holds up the world. Because here, we need to mention some important psychological aspects. Men are more singularly focused on solving one specific situation. A woman, on the other hand, is always this and this and this and this. She tries to keep everything under control and do many things at once, especially now when the entire world has changed so very much that women are going far. That is to say, now we've kind of returned to the era of the Amazons, probably. Nowadays, women, don't ever underestimate them. They can do much more than they might appear, seeming delicate, sensitive. But inside there can be such strength that she can carry both the house and the world on her shoulders. And so, for me now, a woman is first and foremost a warrior woman. Well, I think that's normal. I think that's absolutely right. And even if she is a warrior, that doesn't mean she doesn't want to be gentle, fragile, to feel protected. That will always be the case. It's just that circumstances have turned out in such a way that now she has to worry about many things to survive. What comes to the forefront now is inner self-preservation and protection of the state and of her own family. That's how it is. And if, for example, a woman is an artist, and in general it seems to me that being an artist is not a profession for the truly weak. It's a profession we often indeed hear about very frequently. We read about artists who live difficult lives, who are often unhappy, who are deeply misunderstood by everyone. That's the kind of biographical data about many artists, such as their struggles, that was firmly instilled in our collective minds. But it truly seems to me that when a person stays in art for so long, not as a hobby, not just for a period, but for life, until their very last breath, that is a very strong person indeed. Because it's a constant, ongoing struggle of internal processes, a struggle with yourself, a struggle with challenging circumstances, a struggle with misunderstanding and with rejection. And despite all that, if you truly remain with your paints and your canvas, then you are incredibly strong in spirit. I very deeply value and profoundly respect such people. I taught for a while. And I always told my students very honestly whether something in their works was good or bad, told them my honest opinion. In other words, I was quite a strict teacher. Those who remember me. When something was truly bad, I would certainly say so, that it simply wasn't good enough, because that's precisely how I was taught as well. I had really good teachers. I remember that I always drew, and it seemed to me that I knew a lot. And I came to one teacher, show your work. This was still in criminal times, Dyachenko. Now he is gone. And he looked at me and said, well, you don't know how to do anything. He said, you'll never be an artist. Then if I had truly, really been weak, if I had simply just taken it so much to heart and then just quit, it actually motivated me a lot. What do you mean I can't do anything? I'll prove it now. And those few powerful phrases of his became a kind of significant driving force for me. Or I distinctly remember when I got pregnant, another artist told me, well, that's it, now you'll certainly stray from whatever creative path you were already confidently walking. Now it's motherhood, a child. You won't achieve anything more, just look how incredibly hard it is. And I remember that also outraged and surprised me, like, how is that? It's not a sentence. Sure, it will be hard for a little while, but you still absolutely have to persevere and keep going. I distinctly remember that during my maternity leave, I held 3 or 4 solo art exhibitions. I was working just like a newlywed, like it was our last time. I wanted more and more to do as much as humanly possible to accomplish even more significant things. Well, yes, of course, maybe you absolutely shouldn't do that, because you can end up feeling completely and utterly drained. That profound feeling of emptiness is truly difficult for an artist, but you have to see it as a certain period, when your own body is clearly telling you to stop, that sometimes you just really need to rest and recuperate. Even if you're resting in the studio just looking at the canvas and doing nothing, you need to give yourself a chance to recover, to reflect, and then start something new.
If you compare your unique painting style to the rich tapestry of folklore, what do you think truly unites them in their compelling depiction of women?
That's an interesting question. My painting language and folklore.
Maybe there's some connection between the images in songs and in your works.
Earlier, if I dig a little deeper into my artistic work, what was there before? There was definitely a 100% connection, because I had a series where I based my creative work on traditional Ukrainian ritual songs, carols, certain ancient beliefs, cultural traditions, and I translated all of that into the visual language of painting. That is, I vividly depicted Ukrainian holidays, for example, the significant Yevdoka, Malanka, so I portrayed all of that in my work. Then at some point, I realized that the main moment when I start to understand that I need to either interpret things differently or move on to another topic is when I look at a blank canvas. I know what the artwork will be, and I look at the blank canvas before starting, but I already see the finished piece, meaning I've been working in this technique for so long, I know exactly how I'm going to depict it. And for me, that sense of curiosity about the process itself has disappeared. That is, I know that I'll complete it, what it will look like in color, what the final result will be, and that's a big period. So I need to do something different. For me, it's important to surprise myself first and foremost. That's precisely why there was a significant period when I vividly depicted Ukrainian holidays and cherished traditions. I kept a few works for myself. I decided to keep them. And then I switched completely to a different interpretation, a different pictorial language. It seems to me that what color is what unites. I really truly love red, and I really love bright, vibrant colors. I really love bright colors. Every single time, I truly want to make my work more calm, in soft pastel tones. I really truly love and am deeply inspired by talented artists who so gently and thoughtfully filter their entire color palette through white, light gray, and other subtle muted shades. So calm. I can't do it that way. Well, if it doesn't work out, then it's not for me. When I paint like that, I start to realize that I need to do things the way I feel. And it's this very vibrant riot of colors, these truly pure paints, that I think is the essential and main criterion that clearly reveals that I am indeed Ukrainian. These beautiful flowers immediately remind me of the bright and vibrant ones on the gates, the traditional and colorful Ukrainian outfits, in general, if you simply close your eyes. So for me, it's like vibrant flashes of bright colors, ribbons, skirts, ceramics. All of this is truly expressed through color for me. But for me, it's open. I mean, I'm not afraid to use bright orange, pink, lilac, yellow. Sometimes it seems to me that I'm not at all using them correctly. I don't even think about certain aspects of color theory. Even though I used to teach color theory, I just don't think about them. So I just place them next to each other based on my inner feeling, and then on the canvas they start to get acquainted, to enter into some kind of dialogue. I'm talking about the colors. And then it turns out right and everything feels organic. And if we talk about specifically the portrayal of women, no, it's still about color. After all, it's about color.
Unexpectedly, but your answer is actually a great segue into our traditional segment, the folklore chest, because it will be specifically about colors and, in fact, folklore about Ukrainian folk songs. So let's take a look into our folklore chest, which always contains something related to the theme of our episode, and today it's lines from songs about love. But what will the task be? There will be certain blanks. Behind these blanks, there is a hidden word that represents a certain color, and you need to guess it. Shall we try? Let's do it. Interesting. I'll confess the honest truth that with Roman, I am in love, and he is. If we get together, we'll be a couple. What color is Roman?
Roman. And what if I don't guess? I'll go with my own
feeling. This is exactly about your feelings. I want to say,
is he black? But he's not black. Correct? He's black, right?
Yes.
Well, the first thing that came to mind was that he's black. Fair-haired. Well, that's how it is, and Nanny, that's how it turns out. That's how God pairs people up. We'll live together, we'll be a couple.
All right. Not so much that young girl as a face. Give to me, girl, give to me, beautiful, your little hand on the horse.
White face.
Over the sea, over the shore, 3 Cossacks rode on their horses.
Blue sea. Well, it's quite trivial. The sea is truly very blue indeed. Yeah, I like it. The girl with the pearl earring, they're about Vermeer, the artist, when he told her. It's a movie, but it's still a very beautiful shot. What color is the sky? She says at first it is blue like the sea, just blue. He says, no, think again. And she started to see it's gray, it's blue, it's pink, it's yellow. That is to say, she truly began to understand these subtle nuances that the sky is not just simply blue, and the vast sea, for me, for example, is more black than blue in its deepest parts. Well, but let's move on, because I'm starting to get into my own topics now.
Where will we spend the night? You are my beloved falcon. There under the mountain, in the grass, you are my dear girl.
Green grass. Green, right?
Green probably, yes indeed.
And the grass isn't just green.
And the very last thing, green leaves chestnuts. Oh, how truly sad indeed they are when evening falls.
Green leaves. I really want to actually say some brown or red chestnuts.
No, actually white.
White chestnuts? This is unexpected. The white chestnuts are blooming, yes, maybe. It's May in Kyiv. And I thought that immediately talking about chestnuts is like, although brown chestnuts would have green leaves, white chestnuts would.
At the end, we have Blitz interview. 7 questions, 7 short or not so short answers. What character trait do you value most in people?
Kindness.
And which one do you think is the worst?
Cruelty.
What inspires you?
Music.
What scares you?
Night call.
What helped you to hold on during the most difficult moments of life?
Paint.
What is the main goal or mission of your life?
Love.
If you had to choose 3 words that characterize Ukrainians, what words will they be?
Free. Sincere, truly heartfelt. Rich, well, not rich in terms of material wealth, but rather abundantly rich in profound inner qualities and admirable virtues, that is, their own inherent characteristics.
And now the artifact section, in which we ask our guests to leave something as a memento of themselves. Please, Natalia, tell me, show me what you brought for our little museum.
Of course. What else could I bring? Of course, these will be my artistic works. This particular piece is from my well-known Nudes series. I immediately thought that, well, it would naturally be a woman. But then I thoughtfully considered, well, what is a woman truly without a man? They should absolutely be a complementary pair. And in general, they truly go together, as they always say. It's a powerful male torso and a beautifully rendered nude figure, much like this particular one. This piece is from the renowned Flesh and Blood series, and also the Nude series. These are the series that flowed one into another. This is colored ink. So here are 2 emotional pieces. Then once again, there is the prominent color red, displaying a lot of this truly rich, expansive, and wonderfully vibrant quality. So I'll be pleased for you to have them as a memento of our conversation today, which had a great deal of passion, profound suffering, deep love, vibrant paint, and beautiful painting.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you. We'll take these fascinating items for our museum, which truly grows with every single episode, and that's really quite nice. I sincerely hope there will be many more seasons to come in the future, and so our wonderful museum will continue to keep growing, and in this significant way we collect, let's say, or gather together both the fundamental values that we discuss and mementos of our esteemed guests who, in a way, embody those values, for us at least.
Well, that's truly wonderful. That's the right way to do it. That's how a history is built, and you create these tactile sensations that you can recall later.
For me, today's conversation and our entire project, but today's conversation in particular, it's a way of putting certain puzzle pieces together, because you see, on one hand we analyze folklore, and on the other, modernity through the prism of our guest's vision. And it's actually, talking about values is, well, probably not a very simple thing, because it's usually something abstract. And you can talk about yourself, everyone talks about themselves, their experience, their work, their relationships. But how do you talk for an hour or even more about an abstract phenomenon, especially in the lives of people, in the life of a nation? And about love, no less, especially about love in this case today. That's, well, a tricky question. I honestly don't know if we succeed, because it's truly a creative process. It's like painting, truly creating a vivid picture of important values in the ongoing process of our engaging conversation, specifically during each and every episode. I sincerely hope we've truly managed to accomplish something meaningful. I hope that today we were indeed able to thoroughly explore, well, at least a little bit, the significant theme of passion and enduring love in the lives of many Ukrainians. And I warmly invite you, if you've watched all the way to the very end, to please share your thoughts and feelings. Understanding your vision of what romantic love is, what love is in the lives of Ukrainians, how they differ and how important they are to us. What is the image of a Ukrainian woman and how is it connected to love? What is the image of a Ukrainian man also in the context of love? Please do write to us, because in this important project every single opinion truly matters. After all, your valuable opinion is another crucial piece of this intricate puzzle, so that we can all collectively understand something more profound about ourselves as a unified nation.
Thank you.
Thank you. Friends, today in our studio we had the artist Nataliia Korf-Ivaniuk. Write in the comments what interesting things you learned. Do you believe that love is one of the important values inherent to the Ukrainian people? I'd like to remind you that you can watch episodes of the Archetype of the Nation project on YouTube, listen on your favorite podcast platforms, and read on magicworld.com.ua. There you will find popular science essays by folklorist Marina Demediuk and recordings of folklore works performed by famous actors. Thank you for your attention and goodbye.